When filming any of the road pictures, there was always one question the director, David Butler, kept asking everybody: where are Hope and Crosby? And the answer was always the same: they're on the phone. At every opportunity, both of these guys would sneak out the nearest telephone. They were making real estate deals or planning radio shows or whatever they had to do. Now, in those days, stars didn't have telephones, private telephones in their dressing rooms. There was generally only one on the set. Well, since they all had to share one phone, it doubled the time that they were unavailable for filming. David Butler thought that he had them all fooled on Morocco. He had the phone, you see, installed a block and a half away. Well, they found it anyway, and his complaints just fell on deaf ears. But revenge was near. One day, just before a big crowd scene was ready to be done, Butler was called to the phone, and it was Sam Goldwyn. The entire cast and crew waited around for half an hour until the director finally returned. And after that, how could he criticize Crosby or Hope? Now let's take a look at this.
Next on AMC, a female executive and her handsome assistant combine business with pleasure in the comedy classic starring Rosalind Russell and Fred MacMurray. Take a Letter, Darling, next on AMC.
If I could find a real-life place that made me feel like Tiffany's. People don't belong to people. I'm not going to let anyone put me in a cage. I'll tell you one thing, Fred, darling. I'd marry you for your money in a minute. There are certain shades of limelight that can wreck a girl's complexion.
Audrey Hepburn in the American movie classic Breakfast at Tiffany's. Wednesday on AMC.
This is Jazzbo, Al Collins. It's time to swing back with the Soundies on AMC. The year's 1943. At the movies, Joseph Cotton starred as the sinister Uncle Charlie in Hitchcock's personal favorite, Shadow of a Doubt. Playing on the panorama at the malt shop was this Soundie featuring Al Donahue and his orchestra. They're hammering out a swing version of the classical Anvil chorus.
Harry, and may he prove the bravest of the Favershoppers. To Harry, Harry.
AMC presents an epic adventure, a story of honor.
In England, 4 people gave me a white feather apiece. They've got to take them back.
Of time-honored tradition.
War was war in those days, and men were men. No room for weaklings.
And of one man's heroic courage.
They're lowering the flag. Surrendering. Holding up a white one. It isn't white, sir. It's ours.
John Clements, Ralph Richardson, and C. Aubrey Smith star in one of the finest war epics ever made, Alexander Korda's The Four Feathers, Thursday on AMC. Coming up next on AMC.
Take a Letter, Darling. And usually a cute little thing with pretty ankles and the proper shade of lipstick begins to cover the page with pot hooks and hook curves like this. But this is different. It has lovely Rosalind Russell saying, "Take a letter, darling," to handsome Fred MacMurray, her secretary. It's the rollicking, ultra-modern story of a lady executive who wants to make business deals, not love, and her male secretary who wants only to make good. And is he doing bad? You tell us after you see this entertainment delight. Take a Letter, Darling.
And now let's meet Rosalind Russell, a high-powered lady executive who desperately needs a man. As her secretary, of course. Fred MacMurray dives right into the typing pool and winds up immersing himself in love in Take a Letter, Darling, coming up next on AMC.
Back in 1942, when the feature we're about to see was released, you would occasionally find a woman in business, but for the most part, that would really be the exception rather than the rule. Now, there was an upside to this concept of a male-dominated society. You see, the wives didn't have to worry about who was with their husbands at business lunches and that sort of thing. It was all men. In the movie that we're about to see, Rosalind Russell plays a female advertising executive who's not only attractive, but she is single, no less. Well, she's rightly concerned that the wives of her clients are getting jealous and therefore causing her to lose business along the way. So what does she do to alleviate the problem? Well, that's the premise of the movie. Enter Fred McMurray as a struggling artist, and she hires him as an assistant. But her real purpose is to get him to act as if they're engaged in front of all the clients and their wives, so that nobody has to worry. Take a Letter, Darling is the name of the movie, and it's a romantic comedy directed with the customary stylist touch by Mitchell Lyson. You might remember him as the director of some other great romantic comedies, Midnight, Remember the Night, The Mating Season, to name a few that we've shown here on AMC over the years. With that, here's Rosalind Russell and Fred McMurray, joined by MacDonald Carey and Constance Moore in Take a Letter, Darling.